What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleash, the weekly panel discussion show. And of course, had to bring a special guest this week. So welcoming back to the show, my old partner on SureDog.com's live chat show, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. Happy to have him back. The managing editor of The Underground, Jason Burgos. Jason, what's going on?
Going on, guys? It's a celebration, bitches.
I forgot to bring my water.
Delicious. I mean, thank you for having me. Excited, thrilled. There's so many things. I'm just happy to be here, but I'm also happy to be a part of the rare fraternity of, getting to work full time doing this thing. I've been doing this for 5 years, slowly working toward this moment. Went back to school, went back to college, worked doing MMA while in college, all this stuff on the side to finally get to this. All I'm saying to everybody out there, listen, serious stuff out there, because I've seen this a lot on Twitter about people wanting to give up on MMA. They're not getting as far as they want to go anywhere. Trust me, guys, you put in the work, things can happen. Just work hard, get better. It can happen. I may be out of this in 9 months, who knows, but at least I can say I was doing something that I love, that I worked hard to get to, and I got it. So message out there, just put in the work, guys. You can achieve.
Right. Fine words from Captain Credential there. A rare moment of positivity here on the Walkout Network.
Well, no,
it's all over now.
Continuing with the positivity, I mean, even if you believe that Jason will be out of there in 9 months, as he says, on best fight odds right now, the over-under is 6.5 months, so get your money.
Only 6.5. Damn.
I'm trying to get paid, son.
No,
all right.
Does this upgrade also include, and Ant's going to have to answer this, an upgrade from Captain Credential? Would it be Managing Captain Credential? Would it
Admiral Credential?
How do we operate?
Editor Credential?
Maybe we should just figure this out as we go along.
Lieutenant?
Today, I just wanted to start the conversation.
It may be corporal or something. I'm not ready to give this guy too high of a title. I don't want his ego growing any further than it already has. So he already ignores my text messages. He barely returned a request to appear on the show this week. So we're getting him before he gets out of control. All right. So with that being said, now we're going to introduce the jack of all trades who's mastered them all. He is the senior editor of SureDog.com, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
Hey, I'm doing really well. I mean, it's rare that I find myself outranked on my own show, but I am so happy to have Jason back with us. We have a great week of fights to kind of dig into. So yeah, it's a good day to be me.
All right. Of course. And of course, every week, the panel is anchored by the man with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He concludes the trilogy of editors on today's panel as the associate editor of SureDog.com, my good friend Jay Petru. Jay, what's going on?
It's an editorial overload, I got to say. I'm very much enjoying this. And Ant, you are the high-level editor fan. So we'll go with that to complete the quadfecta, I suppose. It was a kind of Burgos' story is a feel-good story because of how it all came to be, just because of the limited amount of opportunities in this field. But this weekend was also a feel-good story to longtime diehard fight fans, because there was a certain fighter who people had written off, including myself. I'll probably eat crow later. Is that 40 years young? Matt Brown did the damn thing, and he is my side of the week, because Matt Brown starched Dhiego Lima, and he is now tied for the lead for the most knockouts in UFC history with 12. So Matt Brown, and he might not be done with that record by the time it's all over with. So that's pretty damn good.
Absolutely great stuff from Matt Brown. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the show, but let's give some love to the main event for the UFC this weekend. The Korean Zombie wins a very clear-cut decision versus Dan Ige. His 10th UFC bout. Are we getting premature here with Korean Zombie possibly being considered a legend? Does that idea hold up in your eyes, gentlemen?
I asked this question on Twitter to the Twitterverse, and it was actually a very small sample size, but it was a unanimous answer that I received, because the UFC broadcast and the promotional material was very eager to call him a legend or the legendary Korean Zombie. And to me, I agreed with those who I spoke with about it, that I looked at Chan Sung Jung's career, and I know how terrific it has been, And memorable, you can think of the moments. You think of the twister. You can think of the first Leonard Garcia fight at WEC 48, their pay-per-view, the only WEC pay-per-view. You can think of the getting up to the top of the heights and everything like that. And it's just whatever he did to get there, it's very impressive. But I don't know if legend is the right word I want to use for Korean Zombie. So if this were a swing or miss, I would miss about Korean Zombie being a legend. But he's a Hofa candidate.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we're not talking about a term in legend that has a defined list of requirements. It's completely subjective. But say Robbie Lawler had never won a UFC title. Would he still be a legend? Sure. And I think Chan Sung Jung is at least headed in that direction for some of the same reasons. You know, his straightforward achievements don't match up to some of the greatest fighters of all time. But since Jay didn't use this as his stat of the week, I'll throw it out there. Chan Sung Jung has been the headliner in his last 8 UFC appearances in a row. No fighter that without a title has ever done that, and most with titles have never done that. Demetrius Johnson never did that. Like, I think John Jones and George St. Pierre might be the only ones. Like, it is an absolutely incredible streak, and to be that much a part of our collective memory, that much a part of the culture, that's a way to legend as well. It might be his only way to legend. I don't see him winning a title before it's all said and done, even though he is right on the cusp of a title shot again. But I'll have no problem calling this guy a legend, you know, at least when he retires. You know, he is left a mark on the sport that many more accomplished fighters will not have done.
I feel like there should be a second level instead of legend, because it's like when they vote on the Hall of Fame, like, oh, this guy really isn't a Hall of Fame, and it's all got muddled on what a Hall of Famer is, and like legend has gotten muddled now, like what that means. It's okay to, like, they should have like most memorable or just an all-timer or something like that, because there's another stage, and I even talked about it for mixedmartialarts.com. I wrote an article about how ALEXEY, OLEYNIK, and Matt Brown, they've had memorable, worthwhile to remember careers. They're not legends, but they've done a lot of great things. ALEXEY is one of the greatest submission grapplers in heavyweight history. Matt Brown is one of the just best dog fighters, finishers the UFC's ever seen. There's something worthwhile in just being memorable and not a legend. And when you look at Chan Sung Jung's, his best, what's his marquee win? Dustin Poirier at a featherweight? We all know Dustin Poirier featherweight version just ain't the best version of him. And that's still his best win. And that was like 6 years ago. There's a lot of big fights he's had that he's lost. And to me, at least, if I'm just grading legends win big fights. They have those marquee 2 or 3 fights that, bam, that's when they won a title and they won this big fight. You know, Dan Ige, I respect him, very good fighter, but he's not that kind of guy that solidifies a legendary career. I just wish we start pushing the narrative of these guys are just an all-timer. He's not a legend. Maybe he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's not of the elite of the elite. And that's okay. It's okay to still be memorable and not have had a title shot or a championship. There's a lot fewer of those than most other careers in professional sports in general.
Then let me pose something to you, Burgos, and also to you. Let's play the hypothetical game. Korean Zombie goes up and he fights a top 5 guy, a Max or somebody like that that's ranked, beats them, gets into a title shot, wins the title. Is that enough? Or is legend more of a longevity than a marquee flag planting moment?
Yeah, you want to go first?
I would call him a legend if he won a title, because he has a lot of the intangibles that we hold near and dear to our hearts, as Jason put the term memorable. I was in the building for the Dustin Poirier win, and I think, Jason, I don't think you're giving that the proper credit, because Dustin Poirier at the time was a force at featherweight. We ultimately found out that wasn't the optimal version of him, as his move up to 155 actually put a belt around his waist. but Poirier was one of the more savage featherweights out there at that time. And the way he finished him in a fight of the year, in front of a capacity crowd in Virginia, which actually had a huge Korean fan base. Like, that, being in the building and seeing a whole arena full of Korean people holding up flags and going crazy over that victory felt like some legendary shit to me. And maybe that's my bias for being there in that moment. But also, you think about the absolutely god awful fashion we've seen in mixed martial arts. Korean Zombie actually had one of the more endearing logos and t-shirts from that time as well, something that you still can see if you go to a UFC event. Like, he touched a lot of different bases for to stand out in our minds. He just needs that title belt to be a true legend. But I'm with Jason. If that's second tier legendary, I'd put Korean Zombie right there.
Yeah, if he gets a title, that means he gets the win. He gets the marquee win. And there's the club of UFC champions is still very distinguished and still very small. So if you can make that club, for sure, that's probably what has made that took Robbie Lawler from the same group. Fun fighter, fell short in a lot of big fights. He finally started getting those marquee wins, and then he got a title, and then he became kind of a legendary fighter to match that resume of great fighting and great fights, along with a resume of just major wins. And that's the only thing he's missing. He's missing a few marquee wins or a championship, but he's right there, and he's young enough that he can definitely become a legend. He's already a legend in Korea, in South Korea. He's on their Mount Rushmore.
I'm gonna disappear for a second. Adonis is waking up.
Okay. Then I guess I'll pose this question to you too while we're waiting. So, big title win, upset, or whatever it may have been, very memorable moment. Is Michael Bisping a legend? He's a champion, memorable moments, British superstar, beloved, reviled fighter turned beloved fighter, and now commentator. Duffy is, and I know that you have some special affection for this topic. Bisping, is he a legend?
I think he is. And you talked about his turn from heel to face. Yep. How great is the power of Luke Rockhold that you can turn one of the most disliked fighters in the sport into a wildly popular fighter just by getting knocked out by him? Like, give it up for Luke Rockhold, star maker, to the stars. No, his in-cage accomplishments, and I'm glad you brought him up, because I brought up the idea of Robbie Lawler. I think Robbie Lawler's legend was secure even if he didn't get that title.
I think so too.
Michael Bisping winning that title changed the whole perspective on his career. The whole story of his career changes. Like, all of a sudden, it's the first 4 seasons of Tough that each yielded a UFC champion. He's not like the one missing guy in between, Griffin, Evans, and Sarah. Like, he kind of joins that fraternity. Then he's in the UFC Hall of Fame. Then he's got what looks to be probably a secure long-term career with the UFC. His title win changed everything. Where with Lawler, I think it's just like a little extra gold star on already one of the most revered careers in the history of the sport. But yeah, his importance. He wasn't the first, UFC fighter from Great Britain, but he was the one that opened the floodgates. Like, there was Ian Freeman, and then there was a gap of about 5 years. Then Bisping drops, and all of a sudden you've got 50 guys in the UFC with free haircuts named Terry and Paul. Like, it really opened up just a floodgate of British talent, and it's changed the UFC. It's changed, and it's certainly changed MMA in England, in the UK, because promotions there were these just sucky fly-by-night things, and all of a sudden some of Europe's best promotions are there. Like, Michael Bisping is an enormously important figure in the sport's history, and I say that with complete contempt for the man, but I never let that get in the way of the facts.
I have a thought. What if we instead, because you guys are making such great points, and there really are those fighters that maybe didn't become champion, like Sakuraba. That dude's a legend. He didn't become a champion or whatnot. Right. Those kinds of guys are legends and stuff like that. Maybe it's not so much because we can't put the regular Big Four sports in the same hole and square peg kind of deal with MMA, because MMA is different. That you have a Bisping or you have a Korean Zombie that are so influential in their country. It's not just an American. You know, it's so unique. It's such a global sport. Zhang Weili may be a legend already, and she's got so far to go because of what she's done for Chinese MMA. Maybe it's not about there needs to be a lower level before legend. Maybe there just needs to be a higher level above legend. The icons, Demetrius,
Super
Anderson,
legend.
Jones, the true Mount Olympus, the gods of MMA, and then there's the legends, because they really, you guys are making a great point. There are a lot of legit legends for various reasons of fandom.
Yeah, because I put Korean Zombie and Bisping in a very similar area, even though Korean Zombie didn't win that title, in that, yes, Korean Zombie is directly responsible for an explosion in MMA in South Korea, and we're still just seeing it, like Sungwoo Choi getting up there, that and Korean Superboy and some other fight. Kyung Woo Kang was okay for a little bit. Work with me here, Tiger. It's a building process, and I think that he is responsible for that. So I think in that regard, I think I would be comfortable in he is a legend dash pioneer. You know, maybe a qualifier. Like a kind of like how the UFC has the pioneer wing. I mean, like Sakuraba, MMA pioneer, legendary acumen, and everything like that. I mean, God, he influences fighters that compete now. Kanako Murata, she wore the Sakuraba mask. That's her thing. So, you know.
Yeah, very, very good points there. This is all very subjective talk, so I think we can go on forever about this. But let's push things forward to our swing or miss portion. And we did mention him a little bit earlier, Matt Brown, having such an impressive win this weekend. ALEXEY OLEYNIK, also a guy who is of elder status. Now, are we okay with the swing or miss? Are we going to match up these vets with up and coming talent to build their star?
I'll take this first. I think you have to. I mean, it's a tried and true strategy in fight promotion. You see it all the time in like pro wrestling promotion and stuff like that. You can't do it in the other sports, but that's how you build the next star. It's you have them fight the older guy. Like when Israel Adesanya beat Anderson, we all knew Israel Adesanya was amazing, but it's like, oh, he beat Anderson. Even though he's an older Anderson, like, oh, he beat Anderson. And like researching this, because, you know, I'm an editor now. I have to do more research than before. Researching for this, Matt Brown fought Chris Lytle when he was, you know, long in the tooth and lost to him twice. So that's what's great about MMA, that, you know, these old dogs like Matt Brown, they're there to be used to build a new star. And they said, nah, man, dog got bite. I'm going to knock you the hell out. And that's what happened. That's what was so amazing about that fight on the weekend. So, yeah, I think that's what you have to do. Yeah, you can do the senior circuit. Yeah, you could do Matt Brown versus Carlos Condit. But then there's that conversation. This isn't as good as it would have been 5 years ago. It's not the same. This is too late. Yeah, you have the old dogs fight the young dogs to keep their spot and make the young dogs prove they deserve the upper spot.
You know what? There's actually, I think even in traditional stick and ball sports, there is a precedent for this. Like, think back to the great dynasties in team sports, and they all kind of cut their teeth battling against the dynasties before them. Look at the NBA, where like the Pistons were built by the Celtics, which in turn the Pistons built the Bulls. Like that sort of you know, trial by fire that you have to go through in any sort of competitive environment. It just takes on a different form when it comes to combat sports. I'm okay with the aging fighters taking on the up and comers to build their star. I mean, I think a lot of times, I mean, as uncomfortable as that can be in a case where like a BJ Penn is put up against Yair Rodriguez, something ridiculous like that, where it's just like Jesus Christ, somebody needs to be arrested for this. Aside from, oh, sorry, buddy. Aside from those instances, it makes sense, because if you have the aging guys continuing to fight one another, at some point somebody's got to graduate from that. Mm-hmm. And then you start looking at horrible mismatches coming up in the future. So if we put Carlos Condit and Matt Brown against one another, and Matt Brown wins that, say, now he's got two spectacular finishes in a row. So now maybe he gets a ranked guy, and then you're thinking like, do we put Matt Brown in against Neil Magny? No, we don't want to do that. So it kind of keeps things in a brutal natural order. Just it's Mother Nature taking its course from the Athletic Commission, I guess.
I don't feel it. I don't quite feel it as strongly because I say this personally as a fight fan and not as somebody who covers the sport, in that I would like fighters of similar age, experience, current fighting ability to compete against one another. I will stand on the table and say that Condit versus Brown is a fight I've wanted for a decade. I believe, let's check real quick. In my play-by-play for Sherdog, a collision many years in the making, all-time great violence bringers, all these kind of things. That at the very end of it, the fight, quote, this fight delivered just as much as fans hoped it would. Like, I feel like there is still a place for fighters like that to be able to kind of have their so-called senior circuit, because otherwise it gets real dire. And I feel for fighters like Matt Brown, who can, say Matt Brown goes up there, fights, I don't know, Randy Brown, an action fighter, and starches him, as Randy Brown is wont to do sometimes by accident. Well, yeah, he's in contention, and then he'll have to fight Gilbert Burns. And we go, oh boy, I don't want this. So I like that echelon of exciting co-main event, delivers, and I feel like the fighters should be cognizant of where they are, as competitors, that they should know, okay, I'm not going to get up there and call out Jorge Masvidal, because obviously they're not going to make that fight, even if I actually personally believe that Matt Brown versus Jorge Masvidal might be an actually fun fight, even now with Matt Brown over at 40. I don't want to see ALEXEY OLEYNIK wheeled out against the tough killers that are going to hurt his aging brain. I want to see him against, okay, I don't have many names because heavyweight's kind of replete with good options, but I'm more for welterweight, that I can see guys like like Matt Brown to have fought Court McGee. They're kind of like, they're going to have fun. Like maybe he fought Tim Means back in 2015, and that was a great fight. That was on UFC 189. And I thought, well, that's your fight of the night. And that was still in the prelims. And obviously 189 kept going. I like aging greats that still can bring violence to fight other aging greats. That if Matt Brown and Carlos Condit were matched up, 2 more times, I'm down.
Sorry, Ben, if I'm stepping on your toes at all here. I like the idea of the aging guys fighting the aging guys after it's proven they can't beat the up and comers. That's more so, I think, because I do think you get to a certain point where you deserve to have the fun fights. You deserve to be treated as a legend, and kind of and like, say, like Anderson Silva should not be fighting Marvin Vittori or anything like that. But he should be fighting guys who can add a little extra to the resume, and it's just fun matchups. Like I still want to see him against Fedor. Like that sort of thing makes more sense to me. So Ben, apologize. Floor is yours, my man. Oh.
No, I fall a little more on Jay's side here. I mean, I understand that this is the jungle, and the young lions are going to eat the old ones, but I look at someone like ALEXEY OLEYNIK. He's 43 years old, never a plus athlete, even in his athletic prime 12 years ago. Like that, he always got by on being wily, crafty. He's always been undersized, always slow of hand, slow of foot, yet he had this incredible ability just to not take a whole lot of punishment. Like, you don't get to a 75 fight career by fighting like Mark Hunt. He was kind of the anti-Mark Hunt, where Hunt he knew he had a granite chin and knew he could probably hit harder than you, and that carried him until it didn't. OLEYNIK was the opposite of that until a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, he's getting knocked out really, really bad. And the part of me that's conflicted about watching other people take brain damage for my entertainment in the first place, I can usually suppress it. I just tamp that shit down with some alcohol and rewatch Bushido 9 or something, and all is well with the world. But especially with someone like OLEYNIK, a 40-plus heavyweight, like, yes, there are some guys in the top 15 that he can still beat now. At heavyweight, if you have a good submission game, there are guys you can beat even now. Like, you can't tell me that he couldn't, slap a standing Ezekiel choke on some of those dudes. But the price in the other direction, like, if he is not going to be thinking about his quality of life after this sport and his next steps after that, I mean, I can't help but think about it. And so I'm just not completely comfortable with it. Brown's a little bit of a different deal, but either way, yeah, like I wrote again, because I did the matches to make column after this event. I said, I don't need to see Brown against any more top 10 fighters. And I don't even need to see him against any more of the Miguel Baez's of the world. Give me a Court McGee. Give me an Alex Morono. Let Alex Morono keep
Alex Morono.
Yeah, friend of the show, or at least friend of mine. Alex
Morono. I don't want that.
But yeah, he's like, Morono's like just got Pettis, Cerrone, Brown. He's just getting like the bucket list, like all wrapped up, like as he floats around the UFC welterweight division. Yeah, I don't hate either idea, but just right now, my sad and tender heart is saying, give these guys some appropriate fights with people that aren't really the best of the best prospects and not in the immediate line of contention.
I got a question. When the heck do we transition Chris Weidman into these great fights with other aged veterans thing?
He should have been there already.
Exactly.
He should have been there. He should have been there 3-4 years ago.
Yes.
Around the time that he got laid flat by Dominic Reyes, we should have been doing that.
Who is his opponent? Who is the aged veteran then? Because Jacare would have been perfect. They did it, and he got knocked out.
Obviously, Rockhold.
Rockhold.
Yeah,
I mean, if Anderson Silva was still around, that would have been a good trilogy fight as well, or Chael Sonnen or somebody of that caliber. Chris Weidman really should be in like Bellator or something, just for the matchmaking that's provided there, not disrespecting him.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You want to see him against Rafael Carvalho?
Dude, he would arm triangle that dude in like a minute and a half.
Yeah, but I just think it provides better matchmaking for him at this stage, as far as the names.
So so you're saying it's at that point in the career when the fighter decides I'm going to move a weight class up for fun, and that they should be like, okay, maybe that's the time to flip the switch, like Luke Rockhold going up to fight Jan Blachowicz, because that was a good idea. Same thing with him and Dominic Reyes. To once you have that switch of, okay, I'm going to start having fun in this other division, because I can't in good conscience look at 36-year-old Chris Weidman or 35-year-old Chris Weidman and go, yeah, let's go fight Dominic Reyes.
Well, I think for both of their cases, that was the faster path to a title shot.
It sure was.
That's what that was about, more so than going up to have fun. It's like, okay, well, at 185, it's clear that I'm getting my brain dislodged on a regular basis. Let me gain a little weight, or let me just not cut weight and see what happens there. And if I win this one fight, I'll be in a title fight. And that was the case with both of them. Yeah. If Rockhold had gotten past Jan Blachowicz, he would have been next in line for John Jones, and that's all he talked about leading up to that fight. And if Weidman got past Dominic Reyes, he would have been next in line for John Jones, and that's all he talked about leading up to that fight. So it was more about ease of title shots than anything else in their cases. All right, fellas. So you know what time it is. It's time to break out the seasonings that make your food taste so much more delectable. Pepper, seasoning salt, paprika, whatever you can think of. Bring it to the table. It's time to ask the age-old question, how's Taste My Crow? Ben, you're up first. How's Taste My Crow?
Oh, man. Well, I did pretty well this week on my various picks, but that's not to say I didn't make some terrible ones. I'm just going to go ahead and fall on the Matt Brown grenade. Sometimes, and yeah, I mean, you guys hear me say this every week. Sometimes I'm happy to have that crow. I'm happy to be eating this crow. Like, it's impossible not to like Matt Brown if you're a fight fan. But I thought Dhiego Lima would just be too much for him. My thought was Brown, at this point in his career, his chin is compromised. He's obviously slowed down a bit, but most importantly, he doesn't have that gas tank to do a 3-round blood and guts fight anymore. Matt Brown has about 6 minutes to finish a fight, and I don't think he's going to do it against this new version of Dhiego Lima. And most importantly, I mean, even though he has obviously a collection of highlight reel knockouts, he's never been like just a one-punch knockout guy. Well, lo and behold, not only does he knock the fuck out of Dhiego Lima with one punch, he does it outside of my 6-minute window. I look like a dickhead, but I am happy to have this crow like is seasoned with some chewing tobacco and lime juice, because that's what makes Matt Brown like gain his superpowers. Yeah, eating crow on this one, but yeah, couldn't be happier.
I think okay. Let me just get a show of hands real quick before Ant gets back on track. Show of hands. Are you eating crow for the Matt Brown fight? Okay, so there you go.
That was the best crow I've had.
This one is for the Kanako Murata fight.
Oh, poor Kanako Murata.
Oh, wow. Me.
All right, Jason, you're up next.
And for Jamal Hill.
Well, I made it for Jamal Hill, but I'm just going to see how many weeks in a row I need to use it.
Oh, no.
Oh, man. I don't even know what I was going to say next. Jason, anything you want to add to the buffet of crow that we're eating this week?
I mean, I'm going to be having my Matt Brown crow with like some sazon, maybe adobo, but that's about it. That's all I can add.
Jay,
not Goya brand, because that dude's an asshole.
That guy is, yeah. That guy's a complete goofball. Jay, what about you?
I'll be happy to eat some crow, but a different fight, even though I took a second helping of the Matt Brown crow because I thought Dhiego Lima's leg kicks would do the thing that Miguel Bezos did. Whoops. I'm going to eat crow because I had faith in Aleksa Camur. I will say, full disclosure, I believe I was the only media member that scored it for Camur over Nicolae Negumereanu. I thought that his aggressiveness and the fact that he actually outlanded Negumereanu in all 3 rounds, I think was the difference maker to give him the edge. But I can understand that Nicolae's power was a very different thing, especially in the later rounds. I just didn't see the Romanian, so I don't have to keep saying his name, would have the ability to be in the UFC. I mean, he lost to Safarov. Like, I can't. That's like there's a few fighters that are on that
line of middleweight.
That's exactamento, and I didn't. I mean, even though it was only one performance, it was a very unspirited, just lackluster performance for a guy that came into the UFC destroying everybody he fought. You know, he made guys quit in the stool. He hit Darces. He was a very dynamic guy. I had seen some of his work beforehand. Okay, maybe this guy's got a shot. And Safarov, of all fighters, nullified him. And then he took it to Aleksa Camur in a fight I didn't see happening like that. And I did discuss on the Short Dog Play-by-Play the amount of times, how many times that the commentary booth would mention Stipe Miocic's name, and I'm pretty sure it was a very high number when the fight ended, and that didn't help him one bit. I want to ask a question, and you can answer it if you like, or we can move on. Is Strong Style Fight Team the 2021 version of Glendale Fighting Club? Because we have one awesome champion, for the most part, former champion now, and then Jeff Hughes, and we have some other fighters that just can't quite get over.
I came out of there for a little bit.
Yeah,
but the thing is with Strong Style, like there wasn't like fighters going there and got noticeably worse. And then also too, like it wasn't like there were these huge holes in the game of the marquee star of that team. Glendale Fight Club had something very, very sinister going on, where if you walked into the building, your skill level degraded instantly by several percentage points. Then on top of that, the champion of that team, Ronda Rousey, was clearly exceptionally flawed. But you know, even looking at the mid work between her and Edmond Tarverdian, it was absolute gutter trash. So yeah, the Strong Style is much better than Glendale Fight Club has ever been. So even with not too great results outside of their marquee star.
Can I bring up something as a younger brother? How difficult it must be to be Dhiego Lima. I mean, already he's in the shadow of Douglas, you know, one of the best welterweights to not be in the UFC. But when you look at his record, like every time he has a big fight, he comes up short. We already know, been on the Ultra Fighter twice, but Ultra Fighter finale, Eddie Gordon knocked out. He lost Tim Means, TKO. Jing Liang knocked out. Like then Jesse Taylor finale, finished, submitted. Yushin Okami, Bilal Muhammad, and then he gets another chance against Matt Brown. We all thought he was going to be too much for him. This is a perfect win to get in your resume. Yes, I can get big wins like my brother. And then Matt Brown knocks him the fuck out. I mean, damn. I mean, it is tough to be Dhiego Lima. Seriously.
I mean, it's been a tough week for the Lima family in general. Like that family did not have the best competitive time in the last couple of weeks. So, but yeah, good points there. I guess if I'm gonna add anything to the seasonings that we're gonna put for our crow, maybe you just throw a lot of butter in that pan. Make sure it's nice and fatty.
Whoa! We're getting older. We can't do the calories as much. It
depends on if you're eating keto. You gotta be careful. You gotta be concerned about the diet plan itself. Okay, Matt Semelsberger and Khaos Williams. I mean, I expected Khaos Williams to win that fight, but for it to go to decision, definitely a big shocker for me. I would have put any amount of money on that fight being ended early, but fortunately, I did not because I'm too cheap. So I kept my money. All right, fellas.
You were spending all that money on the butter.
Well, it's delicious. So let's move things along here to shallow cuts. Now we're going to each have a minute to make some sort of argument about a particular topic. So let me go ahead, pull up my clock. I wasn't prepared because I forgot this segment was next. So now I got to find my round timer. There it is. Ben, I think we'll start with you on this one. Can you think of a bigger change in opponent quality than Vitor Belfort going from the real Tarzan to Oscar De La Hoya? You have 1 minute, my man.
No, I mean, this is the definition, practically. We're talking about someone in the real Tarzan with 2 ends for a double dose of that. I don't know. But we're talking about a guy with no professional fight experience at all, other than a couple of assault charges, that is a freelance alligator wrangler or snake wrangler. I mean, this is the most Florida shit I've ever heard in my life. Like, what in the hell is even going on here? Going from that to, even if he is aged and washed up and coke bloated and, can't even fit into his favorite, like, women's lingerie anymore. Someone in Oscar De La Hoya, who was a legitimately great boxer, absolutely on the short list of the greatest of his era. That kind of transition, no, like it would be impossible to get much worse than that. Like it's not a real fight thing where, like, Joe Soto got promoted to challenging,
Oh, I was gonna let you finish the sentence, but all right. Wait, he froze. No, he didn't.
No, I'm done.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah, I just hope that they're both drugged up out of their minds on whatever substance tickles their fancy, because that's the only way I want to see this fight. Jason, I think the next one will be in your hands. Fight Circus 3 was postponed again this week. I
don't want this.
Give us your thoughts on this.
Who cares? I don't know. I mean, no disrespect, Full Metal Dojo, but I don't dabble. I'm not dabbling in the Metal Dojo, and I'm not dabbling in the circus. The last time I was in the circus was Madison Square Garden. It was Ringling Brothers, and it was like 1995. I don't do the circus anymore. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow. And with all this time to spare, let's just put this disclaimer out. The opinions expressed by one Jason Burgos are not those of the Walkout Network. We here love Fight Circus.
I tell you not to give me that one.
Put Jason Burgos in a phone booth with 2 little people and let him knock it out. That's
with headbutts.
Hey, yeah. You know what? I think me and Jay should Siamese box Jason Burgos.
I am all aboard that wagon
for this.
I'll even use my left hand if you need.
All right, fellas. So Jay, this will be all on you. The LFA is going to Brazil next month. Is this a good idea?
I don't know if you could tell by my burst of laughter. I believe Brazil is on the international list of, hey, cut your losses, don't go there list. I believe is the professional U.S. embassy term. Hey, knock it off. No, seriously, why are you going to Brazil? You can wait a little while. It's okay. Why? In July, in the middle of the pandemic? Are you going international? Okay, international travel. UFC is doing that. They're going to London, or at least somewhere in Britain. It might turn into Manchester. Depends on what happens there for the Till Brunson card. But the LFA is going to Brazil, one of the countries that is dealing with the pandemic worse than the US is going to be dealing with it, and you're going to bring fighters in? How are you going to get home? Are you going to have fans in the building? You know, there are bad ideas, and this is the latter. Like, I don't understand in any way, and I don't know.
Can I add something just in defense of LFA? Outside of the big four, Bellator, One Championship, UFC, you know, PFL, if anybody was to do it, of the jungle fights, ACB, Risen, this would be the one company maybe they can do it and make it, you know, not die. You know, this would be the one. At least if somebody's gonna do it, LFA, I would hope they're the ones that do it.
But the thing is, they don't have the protocol established already. It's one thing if the UFC were to try that now, we would rake them over the coals for it, but at least they have a track record of doing this to some level and having some sort of quote unquote quarantine in place and establish.
They won the first events back.
Yeah, but they've done it over time. They've practiced it. They've kept doing it. They kept doing it, and they've refined the process. And they even, you know, when they went traveling internationally in a place that was a hotbed for COVID, they had their own city essentially blocked off, and the only thing that made it through that barrier was a sack of potatoes. So I think that a big bag of potatoes. So I think that if the UFC were to do that, it makes more sense, even if it's still ill-advised. LFA, they've run events in like Texas or Oklahoma,
like
wherever.
Wyoming
they've been at the place in South Dakota for a while now.
I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just saying of the people that could do it, they'd probably be the best chance to get it right.
There's a way they can do it.
Talent.
Because LFA, I mean, they work with a skeleton crew. They have like 5 employees.
Yes.
And if they were to go over there with their skeleton crew, use Brazilian crews for production, use Brazilian talent, that'd be one thing. But if they're going to fly over a bunch of 6-3 fighters from the U.S. over there to fight, what the fuck is the point?
But not only, here's my biggest sticking point. This will be the LFA's first international event. So they don't have a production team to try. They've never done this before. It's not like they've gone up to Canada, gone down to Mexico, gone to the Caribbean, gone to Britain. This is the first international card, period.
Ed just wants to go take a vacation back to Brazil and see his family. Just the way to write it off on a 1099.
If they were smart, they would call up Walid Ismail and work with Jungle Fight, who is the Brazilian-based league. But to just go in July 2021, when Brazil is approaching the UFC or approaching the United States in terms of COVID death and positive rates, guys, why now?
That's the question. Why? What is to gain from it? What speculate away? What is to gain? Is it money? Is it political? Like, why are they doing? Is it a Bolsonaro thing?
Jay, what makes LFA mad when you do to them? When you call them a
regional promotion?
They are not a regional promotion. They are a developmental league to the UFC. They are getting overtaken. The UFC has scraped. They're in the same boat as Invicta, where the UFC has scraped so much talent off of them.
So
that when I made my offhand comment about a bunch of 6-3 fighters, that's the top 3 fights.
Yes,
the undercard is a bunch of 0-1 fighters, like 1-0 fighters. 0-0 guys. Meanwhile, I mean, I'm a little biased because they're in my backyard, but you know, Fury Fighting Championship just signed a deal with Fight Pass. They're 4 fights into that deal. They were the first promotion to bring fights back to Texas. This used to be LFA's stomping grounds. Like LFA used to own Texas, and they don't anymore. LFA is doing this as a way to separate themselves from the Furies and the CFFCs, and they need to prove that they are on that second tier still. Like they are in serious danger of regressing back to the mean.
I mean, I haven't watched a single episode of The Ultimate Fighter, but I'm fully aware that this season of The Ultimate Fighter took basically their roster.
Dude. I saw Ricky Tercios yesterday. That dude must be the worst poker player on the planet.
So how you doing, Ricky? So I won my first fight.
I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, sure, dog, and he like starts hiding his face and just like running away.
Well, I guess that's good because we don't want to have a tough 4 situation reemerge.
Oh yeah,
for sure, dog.
The Walkout Network get banned, but I mean, I think I've already been blacklisted, so it's all good. Yeah, so actually I think LFA would probably be better suited to put on a safer event. If they want to stand out, they could just have an event on an active volcano. That probably would be a lot safer for everyone involved.
Go to Hawaii. That's got volcanoes.
All right, so I guess now the clock is for me here. The question I will be dealing with is about TJ Dillashaw. The UFC is pushing TJ Dillashaw during the broadcast for his next fight, as if it were some sort of redemption story. Was that the right angle to approach it? Hell to the no. That was not the right angle to approach. How stupid do you have to be to have a guy like you're featuring the guy's EPO as the redemption arc? Like, if we're going to have a redemption arc, shouldn't he at least test clean for his next fight or two before we start pushing this as some sort of positive story? He cheated. He blatantly cheated, and we don't know how long he got away with it. And now they're trying to push it as a redemption story. And, oh, woe was TJ. Yes, woe was TJ for shoving a needle up his ass. That was not right. Therefore, you should not get the benefits of the promotion as a result. It's really sad behavior where you're rewarding bad behavior. Like, yeah, let's throw a dolly through a bus. Let's put that on a commercial. This is the level of stupidity that we've reached with this. There's absolutely no reason why Dillashaw should be pushed as a redemption story when he has yet to redeem himself. So throw it in rice.
I have a question. I have a question for everybody.
Yes. Is the question, why didn't they push Corey Sandhagen? Because that's my question too.
That should be the question, but it's not going to be the question. From a business standpoint, what do we want them to do? Because this is a marketable talent. This is a former champion. They're going to want to make money out of him. Do we want like a Handmaid's Tale, like shame circle? Do we want like Game of Thrones and then walk through the streets and just yelling shame? Like, he's had 2 years. He's lost 2 years of his career. Like, if they, on a business level, I get everything you're saying, but on a business level, you want to squeeze the juice out of the value in TJ Dillashaw in a main event, because he still is the bigger name than Corey Sandhagen after 2 years away. What should they have done? Just ignore him? Like, what do you want him to do? Well,
in the past, they've just like not mentioned. Yeah, they've just ignored things completely. Yeah. And in fact, they've weaponized things to discredit someone. So like, we're not that far removed from Dana going on some revisionist history tour to talk about Chris Cyborg and how Jermaine Durandamy refused to fight her because she was standing up for clean athletes, when in fact they stripped her for doing that. So like, there's so many inconsistencies, but either way, you're still rewarding really bad behavior, and not just bad behavior in like a criminal sense outside the cage, like continuing to put John Jones in highlight spots despite, you know, whatever foolishness he gets into, or McGregor trying to assault a van full of fighters. Like, this is actual in competition tampering and tinkering that is being actively rewarded. Like, that's just nuts. And while you're not even trying to push the guy who has been competing clean during this time and has emerged as a top rate contender at the moment,
and a highlight reel machine.
Yes,
like they can show the Frankie Edgar. They can show the. He
might have the best knockout this year. Yeah, and might have the best knockout of 2019 or 2020. I mean, and you're not going to. Yeah, you're not going to highlight that. But hey, this guy did EPO and he's really sorry.
I get all that stuff, and it should be Sandhagen, and that's not to say they won't show. Maybe they will push Sandhagen, but I'm always a big believer, especially if you did a crime, time served. Like, he still lost 2 years of his career. Like, are you saying like he should have just been banned for life? If you're saying that, then I get it. But like, when does losing 2 years of your career mean time served? You got to rebuild the star fight. That's a former champion.
No, I'm not saying like kick him out the sport entirely, no. But I think there's a big difference between you serving your time and you're coming back to compete, and you coming back to compete with commercials hyping the fact that you cheated.
But they're selling a main event. Like, this is the main event of card. You have to sell the main event.
You got to sell the other half of it too, though.
I think that's where I take issue with it. It's that they're selling a main event.
It's a business, though. They have to. No, they have to sell this thing. They have to make people. I know it's ugly. I agree with you guys 1,000%. It's ugly, but on a business, not a sporting moral level, like, they kind of got to do it. They got to build this guy up again.
But historically, Dillashaw hasn't been a big draw in terms of any pay-per-view metric of any kind. So to put him as my issue is that he is the main event. Like, is he the biggest fight on this card? Probably, but that's because the UFC has been doing a boxing model and that they'll make a barely passable main card and prelims scraped together from LFA and from Contender Series and Fury and other leagues like that. I feel like he is being rewarded by being given a main event. I'm happy he's not fighting for a title like I was expecting him to do. I was expecting the UFC to make him go, oh, he's a former champ, so he's going to get his shot to regain his gold. No, man, he had the Lance Armstrong treatment, except for the fact that he's not banned for life. He's back in 2 years. And I don't like the fact that he's now, and this was all through the broadcast, that he is the guy. Like, if they can't push Corey Sandhagen, yes, his personality isn't whatever they think they want. He's not rambunctious and yells and whatever. Dillashaw isn't either. He's not a talker. He only had a few moments with Cody because Cody brought it out of him. He's not.
Oh, you mean when Cody accused him of using EPO like over a year before he got busted?
I mean,
Cody is smarter than we all thought he was.
Cody's playing 4D chess. I feel like the UFC is probably thinking that Dillashaw's return will sell, but this is a random fight night card. Like, I don't even believe that they're putting it on ESPN. I could be mistaken about that one. I'll check momentarily, but it isn't. Why are they selling this main event? If like they're pitching a main event, but the Dillashaw fight is in, let's see, it's June 20 area. The Dillashaw fight is several fight cards away. This is over a month out. So why this one? Why not Gan Volkov? I think we probably should be excited about Cyril Gane. Why not? I mean, well, I guess they need to put together the fight, but Holloway Rodriguez or Giga Chikadze Rodriguez or whatever they're doing. I just feel like it felt so out of place that they're really pushing a month out event instead of Conor Poirier 3. You know what I mean? Which comes sooner. It just felt so out of place that I couldn't not think about it.
Are they pushing
like a Fight Pass special or something?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a documentary. Are they pushing an event or are they pushing product and content for Fight Pass?
I don't remember being on.
It's like Redemption, that documentary series, Redemption or something. So that's what I'm saying.
That's what I thought it was, but still, like, it doesn't make sense if he hasn't had any redemption yet.
No,
if TJ Dillashaw goes out there in July and gets absolutely worked over by Sandhagen and looks totally out of shape and isn't the high volume cardio machine that he once was, we have some serious questions to ask. And the word redemption will not be brought up at all. Pushing a redemption special makes sense if this guy proves to be clean and works his way back to the title, or at least a title shot, and looks sort of like his old self. That would be redemption in my eyes, at least. This isn't redemption. Like, you haven't returned yet. Like,
yes, I think that's a very important note, is that he hasn't done anything. I mean, like, this is TJ Dillashaw, who denied it for a while.
Yeah,
like he didn't come clean until all of the tests came back, and he's like, "Well, I guess you got me."
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling kids. Like,
if he comes like hat in hand, like he did in that one interview, like, I fucked up, I messed up, I did it. Does that make it better, or does it really matter?
Why didn't they use that?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't push redemption story until something has been redeemed, and that just seemed like they just got this all out of order.
UFC does not handle redemption well,
not at all. And then on top of that, like, I mean, true redemption, we all know, is walking around your hometown with Ariel Helwani. That's true redemption. Like, that's what we need from TJ Dillashaw, and then I'll believe that he's really changed.
Well, that's not going to happen anymore because Helwani is now back with MMA fighting and Substack and YouTube and everybody else right now.
Well, if you break up the documentary in different parts, and you could put it on all of his outlets, but still, he did all those redemption things with MMA fighting, like where like John Jones is walking around Albuquerque and showing the accident scene and stuff like that. Like that's maybe he can Ariel can walk with TJ over to the drug dealer's house and like, yeah, that's where I got the needle from. So I don't know, man. I just think this is just all wrong. It feels bad, but let's move things along to talk about something that feels also right. Saturday night, where I was watching, Donis agrees, I was watching Jermell Charlo defend his title. But man, it was hard to keep my eyes on that screen, because on my second screen I was watching Anderson Silva put the pause on one Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Man, is this one for MMA? Have the good guys finally won against the bad guys of boxing? I don't know if that's the right framing, because I love both sports, but did we finally win one, gentlemen?
I mean, I'll take it. Yeah, because the last version of it was so damn bad in Ben Askren. It's like you had to make that up a little bit, but I feel as much as anything, it was one for Anderson. Like, he really needed a win. He needed a moment. He deserves a moment. But yeah, I think it definitely is one for MMA. The only caveat I will add is, while like Paul beating Ben Askren wasn't a great, example of MMA striking, because Ben just doesn't strike at all. He's not very good at all. I will say Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not even a shadow of his father. He's not even a speck of he's not even a pico of his father. Like, Julio Cesar Chavez 11. This guy is a silver spoon, doesn't take it seriously brawler who isn't a very good fighter and has been living off his father's name for his entire career. He's a brawler. This was the perfect kind of thing. It's still a notable win. The guy was a boxing champion, but then again, boxing has 1 billion divisions and 17 different commissions and sanctioning bodies and whatnot. So yeah, like, winning a boxing title isn't like winning an MMA title, at least to me. But yes, he gave a far better example of the highest level, even though also I add he's like maybe the greatest striker ever. So it's not like a mid-level guy. It's like the greatest striker ever versus a brawler boxer, but he did good for MMA. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. by far, he's not remotely as great as his father, and then the Mexican crowd was booing him. Yeah, that says a lot. Yeah. He has been for a while kind of like the goof up of boxing. But he was a WBC champion, and that's like one of the legitimate sanctioning bodies. And on top of that, like, and even to be a top 20 fighter in any weight class in boxing, you are world class. You are elite of the elite. An MMA fighter should not be able to beat you in boxing, especially a 46-year-old MMA fighter.
You say that though, and I have to take issue with that Anderson Silva beat him. Anderson Silva styled on him.
Okay.
When this was ruled, I think I even said this on Twitter. Okay, how's it going to go here? Silva's going to work him over. As I think it was like round 4 when I noticed this, and I'm like, okay, Silva may be up 3-1 right now. If it's 2-2, 3-1, okay, but Silva's definitely gaining the advantage. That he's not going to get the decision, and a judge scored it for JCC Jr. That was the most boxing moment of all of it. It wasn't anything else. It was the fact that a judge legitimately, I don't know, maybe they were just on their phone the whole time playing with it because they noticed, whatever, the boxing guy. This was like Matt Brown getting the knockout. This was one more for the old guys, so to speak. And it made me want to see him fight Roy Jones Jr. in anything I wouldn't have said, but for him doing this to Junior. It wasn't the best. He's not the best fighter in the world. He's not a pound for pound talent right now, but he is still an established enough name. I mean, this guy fought Canelo Alvarez. That isn't an accident that he worked his way up there to get to that level. So it did feel good to see Silva be able to do this because of the dispiriting losses that he had before then. So this is like thank goodness we get to see him do his thing. But I say this in combination with the Ryzen event, Ryzen 28, the week before when we had to stay up really late to watch it, when Tenshin Nasukawa, the kickboxer that is, by the way, going into boxing, so this is now official, took on 3 different opponents in boxing. Every round, he fought a different guy. And throughout the match and throughout the Anderson Silva match, I thought, why doesn't Silva? I wish Silva could kick him in the face. Just all I wanted was for it to be a Muay Thai or kickboxing match. And I know it's not as popular, but it just, Anderson Silva with just his hands felt like he was. You remember when Shane Carwin fought Jason Ellis? And they literally duct taped his arm behind his back, and he still had to fight with his left hand, even though he's a righty, and he still knocked out Jason Ellis. This felt like that, and he still styled on him. So I just wanted to
when he started taunting him, when he backed up to the corner and started taunting him,
round 3 was just
like almost a tear came out. Like it was like, oh my god, like he's doing the Damian Maya thing to him.
He's
like
doing it. He's doing it.
He's treating him like Forrest Griffin. Like, what's going on here? But one thing that I do want to point out from that broadcast that had me hysterically laughing when they put up the graphic before the fight started, where it said the fights that Anderson Silva won using boxing. Yeah, it's just like, oh, so the fights that he threw a punch in, and it's like, okay, so they had Stephan Bonner there, who he knocked out with a knee to the body.
Chris Lieben got kneed in the face.
Yeah, and like James Irvin, he caught a kick and then a counter punch. It was just like, what are you doing? Like the fights that he threw a punch in is essentially what they put there. And the Chris Lieben was like a Muay Thai clinic, but boxing. Like, no, he kneed him in the head repeatedly. After I'm surprised they didn't put Rich Franklin up there too. It's like wow, any fight that he hit someone. So essentially every fight. I didn't know what to make of that, but
what I enjoyed real quick was when they immediately referenced like he's doing better than Ben Askren did.
Yeah, it's like Ben Askren, like
that can't be the level. That can't be the level that boxing people think MMA fighters are, and I feel like it is.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. But I guess we'll keep things pushing unless you have you want to speak some piece on Anderson Silva, Ben?
No.
All right, cool. So let's move things on to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. This is where we share something that surprised us or ironically did not over the course of the past week. We'll begin with our guest, Jason. What's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I'm not blown away by my options, but the thing that did surprise me, one is Kanako Murata in her fight this Saturday. Like, she was outmatched. Verna Jandiroba just was a far better fighter, got her in an arm bar, didn't finish it, and pretty much had a dislocated elbow and fought a whole just like that and fought a whole round. Like, and the best part of it was them mentioning her idol was Sakuraba, and that's some Sakuraba shit, like just fighting with one arm, that was gangsta as F. I love that. And the heartbreaking thing is when the freaking ringside doctor showed her mercy and stopped the fight, she was like heartbroken. She wanted to keep going, like 2 rounds with one arm. That's sick. And then, of course, talking about Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman on a podcast. Chris Weidman has a podcast, and his first guest is Anderson Silva, and then he's apologizing for the broken leg. And they both shared it. They shared not only a fight, they shared broken legs. That was a little surprising for me. That was my Mr. Falcons moment.
As someone who's broken his shin before, that was a heartwarming moment for me. Ben, what's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I mean, along the same lines of a show in which we've talked about TJ Dillashaw, we talked briefly on Vitor Belfort. Have any of you guys seen Sage Northcutt this week?
Yeah.
Dear Jesus.
That's super Sage Northcutt. That's like super shredder stuff. Like
let me be clear. I am not accusing Sage Northcutt of anything. I'm not saying he found like the lost stash of one championship vitamins, that like apparently Vitor is not going to need now. But holy cow. I mean, we always knew, like at 155, it was almost a joke. It was kind of like Rumble Johnson making 170. It's like, we can tell that your body just wants to burst out of there, with 20 pounds of like hard bulk. We can see it. Just be your best self. And then, Rumble moved up to 205. Northcutt moved up to 170. In these workout pictures this week, I understand that he is just like fresh off the pump, but holy shit. I mean, the best comments I saw on it was Tyron Woodley did this to us when he showed Sage that you could put salt and pepper on both sides of the chicken breast.
No, I'll tell you the best comment. Actually, let me pull this back up. The first comment that pops up when I look on the Instagram post is monster with a flame emoji and a power fist from one steroid user, Kevin Casey. So just kind of funny there. Kind of funny.
Kevin Casey, one of the most alarmingly imposing like MMA fighter types that I've been in the same room with ever. He's not that tall,
so wide.
but he is as wide as he is tall. He's got the same V taper as like Phil Davis, but it's like you just took the whole thing and made it 200% wide. So like the waist goes from 20 inches to like 24 and the shoulders just get a foot wider. Like he was in LFA, like out in like Waco, cornering one of his dudes who was in town. And I was like, from the back, I was like, who the fuck is that? Turns around and it's Kevin Casey's like face. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, but yeah, it's stage Northcutt. Alarming if you weren't such a nice guy.
Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
I want to transition effectively from alarming if you weren't a nice guy. And I was going to go with my story about Violent Bob Ross, but it hurts too much, and there's still some conflicting information, so I won't actually talk about Luis Peña's arrest. Instead, I'll talk about that boxing event, because there was something that surprised me very much. It wasn't the horrible commentary, it wasn't the atrocious broadcasting and overlays, and the fact that somebody was X foot X inches tall and the other was 5'17". Nothing like that. It was not that at all. It was the actual de facto what turned into the main event. Because there's an interesting story around that. Anderson Silva was supposed to, versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., was supposed to be the main event. But Silva said, there's no way I'm fighting ahead of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. And I thought that was very interesting. But did you all watch the match with Sr. and Macho Camacho Jr.? That was way more entertaining than it had any right to be. And it was dramatic. And to just the fighters took off their headgear dramatically to be like, let's do this. No, you know, it's what is the movie from where they take their it was Rocky 3 when Rocky takes off the wraps to try and punch Thunder Lips. And you know, it was just that moment that Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. is like he's what, 58, and by the way, worked over Macho Camacho Jr. He worked the body like he had been doing this for his whole wait a second. But it was just the whole performance. I thought, wow, I hope this is really it, because I got my no money's worth of that whole experience. And I'll say I'm glad to never see it again.
That was really, really fun to watch. And my favorite part about taking off the headgear was like, as if that's the headgear was protecting you from head trauma. And then
the ref's like, no, we can't. And they're like, come on.
That was
please.
Absolutely hilarious. All right, so my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment. I don't know how to feel about this. Because it's right along the lines with the odd boxing matches and sort of you know, circus level stuff that we've been talking about a lot lately. But Rashad Evans, my all-time favorite UFC fighter, is returning to competition in hopes to box either Roy Jones Jr. or one of the Paul brothers. Why Rashad? Why? Please don't do this. Yeah, I'm just really, I don't know what to say about this. I just don't want to see this happen unless he knocks off one of the Paul brothers' heads, which hopefully Tyron does this already. And by the way, notice that like Jake was very careful with his call out. Didn't really call out Anderson Silva like that. He invited him on the card, but not to catch them hands. So interesting, smart move there, Jake. Smart move. All right.
Logan still thinks he can beat Mike Tyson.
Yeah. I mean, some things are so stupid we don't want to give them, but so much energy. Like, really.
No thanks.
Yeah, that's actually yes. Please try it. Please try it. Yes, please sign that dotted line. Yes, please do that. All right. Let's move things along here, because PFL is back, ending their regular season with heavyweights, welterweights, featherweights, and women's lightweight on display. Give me one thing that the PFL has done right and one thing that is done wrong, fellas.
Let me throw out something real quick. This has been an unmitigated disaster of a season for the PFL, but many of the things that have gone badly for them really aren't within their control. You know, like a lot of their biggest stars have lost, and when they've lost, they've lost in reasonably sensible matchups. It's not as though, you know, they baked a shit cake and now they've got shit cake to eat. Like they just the things haven't turned their way. There are plenty of things they've done poorly, so I'll just offer up something that they've done well and then pass the mic. Everything else aside, I still think their production values, you can argue, are the second best in the sport. Like, the Smart Cage is silly, but the guys actually in the booth are competent. Their booth annoys me less than the Bellator booth. But it's more informative than the Bellator booth and annoys me less than the UFC booth. The UFC booth is generally informative, but depending on who you get in there, they just get to bickering and side stories, and I just end up muting it. Just everything looks good. Their decision to put fighters' names on the back of the trunks, where you will actually see them most of the time, is still something smart that the UFC hasn't figured out. So yeah, the product in the cage is still looking really good. If they can weather this season and just figure out the procedural problems and have a few more of these star fights turn their way, maybe we've got Claressa Shields versus Kayla Harrison ready to save this promotion a year from now. Who knows?
I don't want that fight.
I'm not saying I want it either, but I'm saying it's the blockbuster fight that's on the table if they don't screw it.
Yeah. I'll go next. I mean, I'll just piggyback on what Ben said. That's why I was gonna go. Visually, the content looks great. Like what they've done in terms of the Ocean Casino Resort and how they set everything up and how they promote an area. It looks great. Like, it looks better than even what Bellator has done at the Mohegan Sun and stuff like that. And I've been inside for Bellator, the Mohegan Sun. In terms of things I don't like, I still, and me and Jay talked about it a little bit on Twitter last week. I don't like that they didn't have they have four really good welterweights: Magomed Karamov, Cooper, McDonald, and Zeffirino. I wish they would have fought in the season. I get it; they got lucky, they had a playoff, so you're going to get to see it there, most of them. But like, how do you build an audience into the playoffs for worthwhile fights by putting on so main events? Like, I get, I say a Rory and a Glacy T-Bar are sort of names, but who would have wanted to see Rory versus Cooper in a main event? Like, okay, one of them don't make the playoffs. That's what's thrilling about season fights. Some stars aren't going to make it. That's the weight. That's the value in it. And they kind of do this whole, we're going to try to set everything up for these perfect playoffs, and it doesn't necessarily work out. They did Jenkins versus Palmer and then Camozzi versus Sordi. That's what they should do. They should have did it at welterweight too, and it kind of confuses me that they didn't. Also, one quick point, the quarantining they did for the fighters was a bunch of bullshit. Like, I talked to Lance Palmer. They had dudes quarantining for 17 days, and oddly enough, some of their biggest stars lost, and then they did it again for the second one, 12 days. They made Palmer quarantine for 12 days and said, oh, yeah, we don't need you this week. See you in a couple of weeks. And then from what I've heard, he's not even going to quarantine for the next one. What are you guys doing? That's just strange stuff. This is the kind of things that gives them a bad reputation. And especially now when they're putting events in Madison Square Garden with 15,000 people, you're making fighters quarantine for 2+ weeks. Weird stuff.
Yeah. I don't really have a whole lot to add about it, but I just feel like the season has felt really rushed and just slapped together. That's the overall feeling I've gotten. And I think more of a desperation than anything else. Like, they didn't go at all in 2020. Like, they just shut down operations. And with fighters threatening lawsuits if they weren't back in the cage, they kind of had to let Kayla Harrison do her thing and another promotion. They really just wanted to do something. So they set up these COVID protocols that weren't exactly ironed out properly, and they tried to piece together the regular season in a way to encourage the biggest names to be in the playoffs. And of course, MMA is so unpredictable. You can't always rely on that. And it blew up in their face. That's really what it seems like to me. And while I agree with Ben about the Smart Cage, I think it's really goofy, but it is interesting. Like, it is kind of cool, I think, and unpopular opinion, to know the strike speed. Although it means absolutely nothing, it's just a fun little thing to talk about while the live tweet on the fight. It's just dumb, and okay, I'll take
the steps taken in the cage stat. I could care less.
Yeah, it's like, you care less, but it's better than Dominic Cruz bickering with Daniel Cormier about something, or God forbid the combination of Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier. It's so much better than that. So I'll take that any day. But yeah, PFL still is obviously a work in progress.
I will definitely echo Duffy. Bringing Kenny Florian into the fold, I love Bas Rutten. I will love Bas Rutten into the day I die, but his commentary has gotten a little more loosey-goosey and a little more free-flowy than it. I mean, it was always, you know, we knew from like the Bas Quadros days, it was always kind of just whatever he says, that's what he says, and he said it, and then he forgot he said it. But Kenny Flooring, you know, he can call a mean BattleBots fight. So I think bringing him back into the fold, I think was actually a good call for them. Obviously, I'm aware of what he's done beforehand, like you know, copying other people's work. But man, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one thing that the PFL has done wrong this season, and I take issue with something you said, Ant, and it's not because of what you said. It's because that it exists. PFL has been off for like 16 months. Like the last event was December 31st, 2019. The first event was April 23rd, 2021. You had 16 and a half months to prepare. How did you not prepare? What were you doing? What were you doing this whole time that made it so you couldn't be ready to get this situation intact? Where were the dry runs? Cage. Must have been building the dumbass smart cage. Like what was so important? And I could go on for hours. I know we're running low on time, and I don't want to abuse the viewers with this. Maybe I'll do a separate section. But PFL season, and I'll say this with confidence, statistically speaking, has been completely manipulated. Matchups have been almost exclusively matched so that winners fight losers. Unless there are not enough winners to fight losers, and there are two losing fighters that go together. I mean, losers, of course, meaning lost their last contest. Every winner of this upcoming women's match, Harrison and Larissa Pacheco, and all the rest of the girls, every one of the ones that won is fighting a woman that lost in the last fight. That's not competitive. That's not preparing for a turn. That is strategically building the playoffs to the fighters that you want to be there, so that even if the winner loses, most likely they're going to move on. Ray Cooper was a very similar situation. Ray Cooper came in after a first-round finish. He missed weight, lost a point, but he took on an opponent that was not – I mean, Nicolae Alexekin's pretty good, but not dangerous and threatening enough to finish him, so that Ray Cooper won a fight, missed weight, still hang on to won the fight, and he's still in the playoffs. This is a complete fabrication when the PFL says we're creating the first regular season in playoffs. Yes, technically, yes, you are, because the structure exists as you have it. But it's not real. It's not actual. There should be no matchmaking other than the very beginning of the very first events. There should be no matchmaking. It should be a random draw, a seeding system, however you want to do it. There should be an actual system in place, because if not, PFL can do whatever they want, and PFL has done whatever it wants. And that just doesn't work for a system that is trying to emulate the big stick and ball sports.
I got a quick question, and just so we save time, everybody can give a yay or nay on. Verdum is out for the season, right?
Yes.
He's not. So if Verdum's out, if Anthony Pettis loses on Friday, he's not in the playoffs. Is no Pettis and Verdum a disaster for their playoffs and ratings and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely.
Of course.
Those are only two, recognizable names outside of a very particular group of people. The group of people that will watch PFL regardless, like us. So yeah, that'd be terrible.
And I'm a big believer in that. Oh, if your free agent goes and he loses, it's not a bad thing necessarily. You know, you build names off of that. But yeah, this seems like bad. If they're not in the playoffs at all, the two biggest free agents. Geez.
Yeah, and then to not, like, after Clay Collard gets that victory over Pettis, for him to have to go through all sorts of trickery in order to get the placement on the card, on the next card that he competed on, it's just asinine. Like, you get a victory like that, okay, put him in a main or co-main spot.
Yeah.
Without, injuries or weight failures and stuff making up that difference. So, but let's keep things pushing here. We're going to conclude things because there is Bellator this weekend. Friday, right? Bellator is Friday.
Yeah.
And the PFL Thursday. Okay, yeah. So we got Bellator Friday. We've got the UFC Saturday. Bellator is featuring Tim Johnson and Valentin Moldavsky in its main event. And the UFC has Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov for some heavyweight action in both promotions. But fellas, give me one fight, not those main events, that you're looking forward to. I'll go first on this because I know someone's going to snatch it. Nicholas Dalby and Tim Means. Oh, yes, please. Yes, please. And I know every time I say I can't wait for this fight, that fight ends up dropping off the card. I think that happened with the last Tim Means fight. So by the time this airs, I'm sure something's going to happen. But, from Tim Means, who not only, in addition to looking like Mike Sloan, also is one of the more consistently violent men to step foot into the octagon, against a guy who had a fight called a no contest due to excess blood spilling in the cage. Yeah, this is why we do this. I can't wait for this fight. Jason, give me one that you're looking forward to Friday or Saturday.
I will quickly add, on the PFL website, it's Friday they go. So it's Friday, Bellator versus PFL, supposedly. The fight I'm looking forward to is Andre Fili and Daniel Pineda. I think that could be a wild melee of a fight. I think
damn it, Burgos.
I didn't take that one on purpose because I knew you would.
So I won't say too much. I'll let you take it. You're better.
No.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I just feel like it's just made for like that fight of the night caliber kind of potential, just a wild melee. That's the one right away. Aside from the main event, when I saw it on the card, I was like, "Oh shit, that could be interesting." So I'm excited for that fight.
All right, Jay, give me one that you're looking forward to this weekend.
I want to see. It's on the UFC event because Bellator 261. Oof. I look at the past Bellators and I go, oh, this is a pretty darn solid card from top to bottom. Oof. All right. So, I mean, I look at the UFC card and I also kind of go, oof, but I don't want to talk about that now. I want to see if a certain Ben Duffy and Keith Schillen's belief in one fighter can hold true against easily the toughest guy he's fought in probably ever. I think so. I want to see if Hani Barcelos can be a top 5 talent against Timur Valiev, who is a guy who has just, man, I had such high hopes for him because of all he had done in World Series of Fighting, just wrestling, and also, oh, that's right, I can throw a flying knee out of nowhere, and I'm probably going to hit you with it because there's nothing you can do about it. Just two buzzsaws spinning at the same time. And Valiev, I believe, is back down to 135 for this fight. So it's going to be just, I'm expecting 3 rounds of mayhem. I actually think this could be the real dark horse fight of the night. I really want to see who's going to get their hand raised, because whoever does that is probably going to be sneaking in the top 15 before too long at bantamweight.
All right, good one right there, Ben. To wrap things up, what's the fight that you're looking forward to?
Well, I obviously, with 2 Houston fighters coming in as almost certainly massive underdogs, I got plenty of ride and die, going here. But oh, dude.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm excited to see Ike Villanueva pick up his second UFC win at the expense of Martin Prochnio. Like, Prochnio's got nothing for like the hands of the blue collar Mexican. Like Ike Villanueva, the UFC won't let him bring his like poncho and sombrero into the cage. That's the sad. They're killing the marketability of their own fighters. But yeah, I got Hurricane Ike in this one.
All right.
Prochnio, by the way, is the guy I was trying to think of that was similar to Safarbeck Safarov earlier tonight.
Well, he's gonna be after Ike.
They can't buy a win fighter. yeah, let's do it. Hey, Hurricane Ike rolling into town just like the thunder overhead.
I'm surprised that no one mentioned Charles Rosa and Justin James. That promises to be high action. Yancy Medeiros and Damir Hadzovic.
Hadjovic, yeah.
Yes, that guy. That should be a pretty cool one as well. All right, fellas. So that's going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. Big thanks to the managing editor over at The Underground, Jason Burgos. Welcome back anytime. Happy to see you. Happy to see you thriving and doing well, despite the fact that I hate you. And of course, catch his work on The Underground. He's got editorials and stuff going up all the time. Great work over there. And of course, you can check out Ben and Jay on Sherdog.com. You can find me on The Body Lock and MMA on Point. So you know what you got to do. Like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. And in the meantime, stay beautiful, stay positive, redeem yourself after the EPO in the ass, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.